Ethel Cain, Preacher's Daughter album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this full-length debut album from Ethel Cain. She is an Alabama via Tallahassee singer-songwriter who started making waves a few years back with her very dreamy, almost lo-fi approach to sort of this ambient folk. Take, for example, her Carpet Bed EP. Hell yes, this thing excited me. It reminded me of what I loved about artists like Marissa Nadler and Chelsea Wolfe, but it also packed a lot of drama, a surprising amount of drama, into only 15 minutes. 2019's Golden Age was even darker. It was even drearier. It even showed Ethel kind of diving into some witch house at points. But what made her music so interesting to me was her storytelling, her lyricism. It backed up her music in a big way, to the point where I thought that it wasn't one note when it very easily could have been. Now, I really came on board around the time of last year's Inbred. I thought the artwork was really interesting. I dove right in and I liked what I heard. Now, this was her most polished release yet, by far, even poppy at times. But I was so enthralled by her songwriting, her storytelling, and the very witchy atmosphere of this EP that I really, just enjoyed the hell out of it. Now, these singles, a couple of them really caught me off guard. I didn't even know what to expect when I heard the full album, and then I saw it was an hour and 15 minutes for a debut album. That's, that's a big leap. But good God, Ethel sticks the landing. This album starts off with the Family Tree intro, and honestly, she knocks it out of the park right from the get-go. This is a hell of a start. It's dramatic, it's dark, it's deeply personal. What else can you ask for? And that's all before Ethel even sings a note, which is ridiculous. When her vocals come in, things get gigantic. The pacing is some of the best I've heard all year. Her lyrics are just as visual as ever, which they almost always are, and we start diving into a lot of the main themes of this album, such as her very troubled relationship with religion. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. On top of that, we get, this suffocating atmosphere, chilling vocals, this monolithic instrumental. It's wild. I'm speechless already. Then we get American Teenager, which is the exact opposite. I didn't know what to make of this as a single. I didn't even like it at first. I was expecting something very different, but I've grown to absolutely love it. Mostly due to her incredible songwriting, just how anthemic this is. This sounds like an 80s power ballad or some 80s Americana almost. Just realize this does not really, sum up the sound of the album, but it sums up a lot of the themes of the album, which is great. The soaring melodies do not last, though. Take, for example, A House in Nebraska. This is a dramatic, heavy track with no happiness in sight. Here we see Ethel remembering a past lover, kind of imagining their life together. But this is what makes this album so captivating. It's Ethel's storytelling. This could so easily be a 6-minute, one-note track that just kind of slumbers off and doesn't really, leave any imprint. But her storytelling, the personality in this is really, really great. I mean, this album is an hour and 15 minutes. Many tracks here are very casually over 6-7 minutes, even reaching 9 minutes at times. Most of the time it's tragic, it's emotional, and you really feel for the characters of this album. And on top of that, tracks like this are maybe not, at least not yet, not heavy by, modern heavy music standards, but it's still crushing in its own way. The drama continues with Western Nights as the character that Ethel plays here goes on to find a new man. And in the story here, we see, Ethel finding some solace in him, even though, he is clearly not good for her, borderline a criminal and an abuser at points. And between her tender vocals and just how quiet, too quiet this instrumental gets at times, this is really, really heart-pounding. It is a tough listen, but it is an emotionally gratifying performance in every way. And even outside that, it's just so easy to get lost in the narrative, lost in this world, this very dreamy, surreal world, this very David Lynchian world. And the commitment to detail throughout this entire album is masterful. And I'm gonna say it now, Family Tree is my favorite track here. Singles, deep cuts, whatever, this track is the best piece of music here. Here we see Ethel on the run from the police, calling back to some of the earlier themes of this album. That alone is chilling, but Honestly, everything is chilling about this track. We get these very steamy, breathy vocals, this intense imagery, and this pacing, and this instrumental that, no joke, has kept me on the edge of my seat more than anything this year. The church bells that pop in, the slow-paced drums, the very dreary, weeping guitars that pop in towards the end of this track. Listen, this album is not going to be for everyone, but it's certainly for me. I should also add that this album dives into a lot of very intense topics, like on Hard Times. Here, Ethel dives into sexual abuse from her father, which she has very conflicted thoughts on. It's a tough listen, but Ethel keeps your attention with her storytelling and her very visual lyrics once again. On top of that, it's the little details, like some of the sound effects and the very airy instrumental, that really make this, very compelling. Man, is it heavy, though. I don't have a lot of bad to say about this album. I mean, Thoroughfare is probably my least favorite track here. I mean, this is the one track that kind of breezes by and doesn't really stop me in my place, which is absolutely saying something, because it's a 9-minute monolith. And that's rough. It's probably the most true-to-form folk track here. And it shows her diving into this very new relationship, this very, exciting new relationship that seems harmless at the time. But for me, it doesn't really add up at the end of the day. If I had to make one more complaint, not that big on Sun-Bleached Flies either, even though I know this is a major standout for most. It's a little too airy and a little too light for my liking. I do like the very reflective nature of it, the way that Ethel, by the end of this track, seems to be at peace, as well as the return of this very powerful religious imagery here. But it goes on a little too long. I mean, this is an album, I should say, full of long tracks, but this is one that's just, I don't know, it's just not cutting it for me. On the other hand, though, the rest of this album is not for the faint of heart, but it is a very thrilling and compelling listen. Gibson Girl takes a turn for the almost psychedelic soul, and that's fitting because, we see her now in this new relationship with this new guy. Sorry, I'm not taking note of their names, but honestly, he seemed pretty charming and exciting at first, but now they're in this very abusive relationship fueled by sex and drugs. Prostitution, I should add, not a lot of happiness here. Man, does this ever, pack an emotional gut punch. What a damn character study this album is. I wasn't expecting that. And also, I should add, if you're into album narratives, which I am, I would recommend, either listening to this album, after listening to some interviews about this album, or reading a lyric sheet, or anything that could kind of help keep you on track. There's a lot going on very quickly. Then we have Ptolemaea. As this album goes on, it gets darker and darker, bleaker and bleaker. This is a drug-fueled, psychedelic, tortured track. It takes a turn for the more surreal, but it's one that's fueled by anxiety. This suffocating atmosphere, the buzzing sound effects that are here, as well as her vocals that seem always just a little out of reach. It's one of the most kaleidoscopic and eye-opening tracks here. It almost reminds you of something off of, Chelsea Wolfe's Abyss. That, alongside of this instrumental that I dare you to keep track of, the repeated screams of Make It Stop, as well as the black metal-inspired finale. Whew. It also ends in this monolithic, gruesome piece of noise, but it's abrasive ear candy. With every track going on and on, things get more and more uncomfortable. Take, for example, August Underground. And this is a heavy part of the narrative, to say the very least. Do your research. But this is also a transcendent, eye-opening instrumental, fueled by power electronics, some sludgy guitars as well. Televangelism is really good too. This track is supposed to be Ethel's ascension to heaven, and that's exactly what this sounds like, because this is one of the most beautiful and touching instrumentals I've heard all year. And Strangers is just the emotional, heart-wrenching, emotional finale that I was craving, and it is a great one. It is gorgeous. It wraps up every thought here. It wraps up every theme, and it makes you think. I can't help but get caught up in this. And yes, it's one of the lighter tracks here, but I can assure you it's a great approach to that. And don't even get me started on when those roaring guitars come in. Fucking hell. I try not to curse on this channel, but Jesus. And even though this album wraps up at 1 hour and 15 minutes, I want more. Listen, I knew I was going to at least enjoy this album from a distance. I knew it in my heart. I really did. But I think Ethel has over-delivered on her debut album and set the tone for the next couple of years. If you are into intense, crushing, narrative-driven albums, this is a feast. Between the songwriting, the heavy themes, the use of imagery, the back-and-forth narrative, the genre hopping, it's all over the place, but it's done very well. This is a very, very exciting full-length debut album from Ethel, and even though we've gotten a lot of material here, and I mean a lot of material here, I still want more, and I can't wait to see what she does next. I am very proudly giving this a light 9, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.